when we get to the film. The second one here is just a basic slant RPO. This is something that, in my time with Laurier, we had a ton of success with. It's something that I've had a ton of success with at the high school level with summer league kids with the Cambridge Lions. Really simple, really kind of the base RPO in most spread offenses. Some version of this. The reason I like slants versus stops is it's better if you get man-to-man. So the first thing a team's going to try and do, if you're being successful RPOing them, is play man-to-man. So I like to teach it where you kind of got those zone rules where you're going to sit down in a hole in the zone if one presents itself, but you're going to run your slant through if it's man-to-man. And that just gives you a chance to really isolate defenders. So even if you get man-to-man coverage, you've got two slant routes against man-to-man. You want to be able to win in those matchups. And it's a play that makes it really challenging on defenses. So, you're going to now, instead of like we saw in the zone read on the previous slide, where we're going to block the Sam linebacker and we're going to leave the defensive end. Here, we're going to leave the Sam linebacker and we're going to base block back on the defensive end. And now isolate that Sam in conflict between dropping to their hook to curl zone, which would help them cover the slant, or being able to play the run, the B gap, which is their fit in most run fits. You'll notice a lot of these are out of 23. It's a formation I love to run RPOs, whether it's zone read slice or the slant RPO. Not the only way you can do it. You can do it lots of different ways. We'll see some examples of this out of a 4x1 set as well. You can do this in the boundary out of 3x2. But one of the keys is identifying, how the defense is adjusting and who the conflict player is. And that's something that if you haven't watched our series on RPOs, being able to identify as a defensive coach who your conflict players are and where they are in certain formations. And then as an offensive coach, being able to identify, hey, who's in conflict here? And how can we pick on them is a critical skill in the modern game. And I'd highly recommend that video series that we did a few months ago on defending RPOs. Even if you're an offensive coach, it's really good just to talk about, what is a conflict player and how do you know who's in conflict? So very, very simple. If it's man-to-man and the Sam, isn't responsible for that hook to curl, we're going to be pretty optimistic we can win one of those two slant routes. If the Sam's a zone coverage player, even better. Now we're going to get that slant route in that zone coverage window behind them. You'll see there I have the little stop option here for the outside player. Basically, if the half's low, we don't want to run into the half, so we'll run the stop. If the half's high, we can continue to run the slant. And really, really important here, this player, can't get too flat. So they need to make sure that they get enough vertical down the field that the timing matches for the RPO. One of the things that I've seen mess this up is when your Y gets jammed and then they run their slant at 2 yards and they're able to get a little bit of separation, but the field half is able to catch up before the quarterback's ready to pull and throw the ball. You got to get to your depth and run that slant. So zone slant RPO, another thing we're going to look at today. This one a little short. Okay, what we have here is really, really simple. Zone read, okay? We're going to isolate the will. The will in 3x2 is the conflict player, right? He's responsible for dropping inside the underneath slot to this field if it's zone. All right, we're going to get two slants, 1, 2. Okay, you see the quarterback's open here reading that will. Will plays down, right? We see now the space that's created in the zone defense. Pull, throw. That puts the ball on the carpet at the end. But you see everything before that, you got to like as an offensive coach, right? We're in a situation where we get 2nd and 3. Defense is playing hard on the run. Create an easy throw for a first down using that zone lock RPO. I'll go to the next clip to draw it up because I think it'll show up a little bit better. Perfect. Okay, so here's another great clip. We talk about who's in conflict, right? Who's in conflict being a huge piece of what is going to make RPO successful. You can't just run the same RPO out of different formations and expect easy, clear reads if you don't totally understand how the defense is actually aligning to that formation. So let's take a look here. This is 4x1, and BC Lions are about to run that zone lock RPO into the boundary again. Some people call it a glance. Okay, it just depends kind of on the depth. I think if if the RPO police are watching. I think if it's a little deeper than 6, they'll probably call it a glance instead of a slant. But that glance route or slant route is a great way to beat man coverage if that's the answer that the defense is giving you. So in 4x1, you need to understand where the boundary half is usually, or whoever is going to be the second defender in the boundary. So here, this is the boundary half. He is relating to the number 4 receiver. He's coming over to the field side or HBOing. Okay. So now we have a huge amount of space in the boundary. This will is 100% in conflict, right? The will is the only player that can help on this slant glance route, right? So we have the will in conflict. It's important to note that if this boundary half sits over here and doubles the X receiver, okay, and we have a 2x1, if this boundary half were to be over here, that will is not really in conflict anymore, right? Especially if this team is thinking about how are they going to defend RPOs, and they have some sort of plan for defending those RPOs. Usually that will is not in conflict. Now, who's going to be in conflict again? If this player is not here, now my Mike is going to be in conflict to the field, because even though I have my Sam, my halfback, my field corner, okay, and even my free safety, who generally is pretty deep, that's 4-on-4 to the field, right? Every zone concept wants to be 5-on-4, so now we can know that the Mike is going to relate to the field. So understanding who's in conflict is key. We did get a good question about the slice concept there through our Instagram. What are you coaching the slice player to do? That I think it depends on who's running it and what you're looking to get out of it. My main thing is if it's a fullback, trying to keep it a little simpler because they're not, obviously catching the ball as much. We might let that, if it's a fullback, be a little tighter to the line of scrimmage. Really just trying to avoid contact with the defensive end. If you can, if you're running it from the slot, timing it up. I prefer it where the slip or slice player is after the snap. I think it hides the motion a little later, and I think it just makes it clear, hey, we don't want you to try and cross the snap. We don't want you to try and cross the center quarterback, and then you can kind of go slow to and accelerate through, and then just get your chin to your shoulder right away. If I can go back a couple clips, that slice player. So as we come across again after the snap, you want to be at least 2 yards. I would say 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, because you never know what's going to come flying through. And as soon as we cross, as soon as we get our free release, we want to get our chin to our shoulder. Because if this quarterback's pressured, you see it right there. If that quarterback gets pressured, right, you can really see it here, even on the slow-mo, bang, chin to our shoulder. We want to be a target right away. And then once we catch the ball, we want to get vertical as quick as we can. So if we can, taking a drop step with our outside leg and getting up the field, assuming the ball is put on your outside shoulder. Good question there. So again, because the halfback is over, right, we know that this will is in conflict, and we can now exploit the decision made by the will. Will here steps up. We're able to pull the ball out of the belly of the back, and again, now we're one-on-one. And the reason why I like the slant is we still have a good chance to win against man-to-man. That's pretty good man coverage. 2nd and 5. This might be, 2nd and 5. Able to throw the slant in that window. And again, after the yak, that's another reason why I love the slant, is you're going to get a fair amount of yak yards. That ends up being like a 15, 16-yard gain. Appreciate it, Coach Butler. Excited to have you on here in the next couple of days. Speaking of good content, good stuff on YouTube, check out Coach David Butler's channel. He's gonna hop on, another international coach, and is gonna do some stuff with us in the next couple of days. We're just figuring out a time that works with the North America time to Canada, or sorry, North America to UK time difference, but we'll get it figured out. So here again, you see the bind 27's in, where he's responsible for the A gap, which makes his job even harder, right? And if he doesn't step up, if he stays at depth, right, we're probably going to get a pretty good chance to get through that bottleneck. And sure, it might not be a 20-yard gain because this player is unblocked, but we're probably going to pick up that first down. Here's another key point on these is if you don't get the ball as the running back, you have to block the linebacker you're RPOing. So let's say, and I know this doesn't play out that way, let's say 27 walks up and blitzes, right? Some coaches will tell you don't even go for the fake, just block 27, and we'll be able to pull and throw off of it. Just got a bunch